So we completed the first chapter in the last class, if you remember. We'll quickly recap what we learnt in the first chapter. Basically, the first chapter was to introduce the problem which Arjuna faced, which is a universal problem. So that is why it is discussed. If it is only Arjuna's problem, it is of no interest to us. Through Arjuna, we were introduced to the universal problem called samsara. The problem consisting of three diseases: attachment called raga, sorrow and delusion. Raga, shoka and moha. So these were the three diseases which are part of this problem called samsara. So Arjuna, the first few verses, Arjuna was preparing for battle. He was all set. He was raring to go. Then from verse 20, 21 onwards, we saw Arjuna getting into the mode of, he discovered his problem. Suddenly when the chariot was placed, probably deliberately by Krishna, in front of the two elder gentlemen called Bhishma and Drona, Arjuna discovered that he had a problem. And that is the problem of attachment. Because till that time he was all set. The moment he saw them, he discovered that he had no will to fight, because he didn't want to kill them, and he felt by killing them there's no point in winning, because without killing them you cannot win the war, and after killing them, if they are not there with you after the war is over, then what is the point in winning this war? So that is what Arjuna discovered. Now let us understand this problem, which is a universal problem. It happens to all of us. The first point is to accept there is a problem. So we first don't have the maturity to probably accept that we have a problem. Because only when we accept there is a problem, there is a solution. Now, every problem has got two factors. Whether it is a physical problem or a mental problem, there is an internal factor and there is an external factor. Generally, we tend to blame the external factor. If we have a problem, we'll say it is because my parents are not okay, my siblings are not okay, my wife is not okay, my children are not okay, so my boss is not. So we find ways and means to give the responsibility of the problem to somebody else. We don't want to accept. For example, if you see probably COVID, when COVID came, not everybody was affected. If it was such a big problem, then everybody would have got affected, then there would have been no way anybody could do anything about it. But a part of the population got affected, the rest didn't get. So what is why some people got it and why some people didn't get it? Simply because the people who didn't get it had better immunity. As simple as that. Those who have immunity, they didn't get the problem. So the rest of the people, so you don't have any control over the external factor. You don't know what it is. Okay, they discovered vaccine and so many things. Whether those worked or not, that's a different question. But what we could do is increase our immunity so that when the problem comes, when the external factor comes, we are protected from that. So the same thing we can extend it to other problems also. So instead of looking at the external factors which are not in our control, because if we try and change the external factors, we will lead into more problems. So it is wise to accept your problem and try to increasing the immunity. Our mental immunity also we should increase. So that is the whole process. So from accepting there's a problem, the next stage what we do is, it happens over a process of 3 or 4 stages. The first stage, okay, now we discover there's a problem. Yes, I have a problem. Next we start looking at solutions on our own. Okay, what will work for this? What will work for that? We try many solutions, and that's what Arjuna was trying to do. To escape this problem, he wanted to run away. He wanted to take sannyas. He wanted to get killed by the Kauravas without even taking up arms. So he was finding his own ways and means, own solutions to the problem, which though sounded very logical, but they would not have worked. So he himself had this doubt. Otherwise he would have run away. He wouldn't have waited. If he was so sure about the solutions he had, he would have tried them. He would have probably left the war and run away. So he had a doubt whether these solutions will work. So up to this stage, the first chapter introduced us to this problem. Now what is the next stage? Next stage is to take help. So that is probably more difficult for many of us, to accept we have a problem and request for help. But if we are wise, that is the first thing we should do, ask for help. But being in a position where we cannot ask others for anything, we generally shy away from taking help. Even a disease, a physical problem, first we discover there's a problem, then we try our own methods, finally we discover it is not solving, then we approach a doctor who then gives the medicine to solve the problem. Same way for the universal problem also, first you accept there's a problem, you may go, naturally we will try and find our own solutions. Once it doesn't work, it would be prudent to seek help. Seeking help is called intelligent living, because if we think we can solve all the problems on our own, then we don't need anybody else. But it doesn't happen that way, as we see in life. So seeking help is the next step, and that is what Arjuna is going to do. Finally, after understanding that his problems are all there is no solution which is there for his problem, he approaches Krishna and surrenders to him and says, now you tell me what to do. So like you go to the doctor, okay, these are the problems, now you give me the medicine. And the medicine that Krishna gives him is called Bhagavad Gita, which is a solution for all the problems. It's a permanent solution. We are all looking for solutions, but none of them are permanent. It's only a temporary solution. For some time these solutions may work, but we come back to the same problem all over again after some time. Like for example, when during monsoon they hurriedly fill up the potholes with some sand and some bricks and all that. for some time you feel okay, the road is okay, we are able to move. But after a few days or after even a couple of days, once some heavy vehicles pass through that, all those things will come out and again the potholes are back. So that is again not a permanent solution. So in life we need to look for a permanent solution, because temporary solutions for a short time we can use. It's not that we should not use them, but if we find a permanent solution, then we don't need to look for any temporary solutions for any problems. So that is what Krishna is going to give to Arjuna, and through him we are going to get this permanent solution to all the problems, irrespective of what the problem is. So this is what we saw in the first chapter, which was called Arjuna's sorrow, which in turn is everybody's problem. So the whole idea of the first chapter was to introduce us to this problem. Now let us move on to the next chapter, the second chapter. This is where the actual Bhagavad Gita starts, from the 11th verse onwards. But before that, the final phase where Arjuna ultimately surrenders, it is just described. So once he surrenders himself to Krishna, then only Krishna starts his discourse. What is this second chapter all about? Now, you can see a systematic approach by Krishna to give this teaching. There is a particular way. Of course, Krishna didn't make these chapters. He gave a discourse in a particular pattern, but later Vyasacharya probably made it into chapters. So we have 18 chapters, out of which we just covered the first one, which is to understand the problem. Now we are going to look at what is the solution Krishna is going to offer. So the second chapter is in capsule form. It is going to tell us what we are going to get in the next, from chapter 3 to chapter 17. So chapter 2 is a entire Bhagavad Gita in capsule form. So if we understand second chapter itself, we will understand Bhagavad Gita, but it is not easy for us, because unless it is explained in detail, we may not be able to understand, which Krishna knows. So that is why second chapter he gives in capsule form what he is going to tell us in the next chapters up to chapter 17. And again the 18th chapter is again in capsule form, where he sums up everything. So the second and the 18th chapter are nothing but the entire Bhagavad Gita in a capsule form. From chapter 3 to chapter 17 is the expansion of the capsule. So each, and again it is divided into 3 parts. Chapter 3 to 6 is what is called as Tvam. He is going to, so there are 3 sections of the Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 chapters, out of which first chapter is just an introduction. The second chapter is a capsule form. So expansion of what is there. The first part is called as the Tvam Padam. That is, Krishna is going to tell Arjuna what Arjuna is. So we have this Mahavakya called Tat Tvam Asi. Tad Tvam Asi. So the first section deals with Tvam, who you are. The next 6 is about Tat, That is, Krishna is going to tell who he is. He is going to describe what he is. And the third section, Krishna is going to tell the connection between these two. Asi Padam. We call it as Tvam Padam, Tat Padam and Asi Padam. So 666. You can broadly divide the Bhagavad Gita 18 chapters into 3 sections. The first 6 chapters are Tvam Padam. The next 6 chapters are Tat Padam, and the final 6 are Asi Padam. So the Mahavatya Tat Tvam Asi. Translated in English, it is thou art that. So that what is that thou, what is that, and how they are linked? This is what we are going to understand in the Bhagavad Gita. So the second chapter is just you can say the contents of the entire Bhagavad Gita are given in capsule form. Later, he will expand it to make us understand better. So with this, we will start the second chapter. So we'll read out the verse. This chapter is called Sankhya Yoga. So the first verse in the second chapter, Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripaya Vishtam Ashrupurna Kulekshanam Vishidantamidam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. So here again, going back to how the Bhagavad Gita started, the proceedings are being narrated by Sanjaya, who is the minister of Dhritarashtra. So again, just to remind us that it is Sanjaya who is narrating. He comes into the picture now. In this first verse, Sanjaya says, Arjuna's, he just described the emotions of Arjuna. Eyes filled with tears, overwhelmed by sorrow, and face showing distress. Looking at him, Krishna spoke these words. So this is only to Sanjaya is narrating to Dhritarashtra what is happening. So he says Arjuna's eyes were filled with tears, his whole frame was overcome with sorrow. Looking at him, Krishna said this. So that what Krishna said is what we are going to look at now. So here Krishna is going to come into the picture. So far Krishna was silent. Now the second verse of this second chapter, Krishna speaks. So let us read the second verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalamidam Vishme Samupasthitam Anarya Jushtam Asvargam Akirtikaram Arjuna. Now Krishna, looking at Arjuna, says something which Arjuna did not expect. So he asks Arjuna, where did you get this despair, sorrow from? How can a brave, courageous person like you suddenly develop this sorrow, this despair? Having come to fight, you are ready to fight, you came prepared for everything, and then suddenly now you are completely overcome by sorrow and despair. What is happening to you? So basically Arjuna didn't expect Krishna to respond in this manner. He was thinking all the explanations he gave why he didn't want to fight. Krishna would give him a very sympathetic view. Okay, good. Let us now see what we can do about this. But Krishna took a different attitude. What's happening to you? Why you are behaving like a... Again, he is going to even sort of abuse him in a even worse manner. Here he just said, what's happened to you? Why this despair? How can you back out now after having come prepared for the war? So this is not the time and place for such talk. Be like a man and then get up and be ready to fight. I mean, that's what he wanted to convey, though the verse doesn't mean that completely. So he says, he uses three key words here: Anarya, Aswargya and Akirtikara. Anarya means, Arya means an upright person. So Anarya is opposite of that. So he says you are not behaving like an upright person. So Arjuna is supposed to be an upright person, Arya. So his behavior was not like an Arya. He was behaving like a Anarya person. Then Aswargya. So he says, if we remember the arguments Arjuna put forth, he said, by killing all these people, I would go to Naraka. So that was what his argument was. He says, in fact, you think by not fighting you will go to Swarga? You are leaving your duty. As a Kshatriya, you are supposed to fight. And by giving up your duty, do you think you are going to go to Swarga? So even if you run away, you are going to Naraka only. This argument of yours that if I don't fight, if I fight, I will go to Naraka by killing all these people, doesn't hold any good. Because if you don't fight also, you are going to go to Naraka. And Akirtikara. So Kirti means his Arjuna was a very famous warrior. Now he will lose all his fame if he runs away. So Duryodhana, if in those days there was any media, Duryodhana would have used that to project. Arjuna, there would have been headlines. Arjuna ran away from the war. Arjuna developed cold feet looking at me. So though Arjuna was not running out of fear of Duryodhana, but that is what Duryodhana would have said. And probably the soldiers who had just joined just days before the war, they also would look at Arjuna and say, oh, I just looked at him, I twirled my moustache and he ran away looking at me. So that is the kind of, even a novice soldier would take the credit of frightening Arjuna. So not only you lose your grace, but everybody around will be talking in a very low way of, lowly of you. So all that prowess that you have, all the fame and name you have gathered over the period of time, vanquishing so many big foes, killing Rakshasas, fighting even with the gods. So all that would become meaningless if you run away. So it is just not becoming of you to run away from this battlefield. Now let us read the next verse. So Krishna continues. Klaibam masma gama partha naitatvaya yupapadyate shudram hridaya daurbalyam tvaktavosthishta parantapa. So here again Krishna sort of insults Arjuna, saying that you are behaving not like a man, in fact more like a eunuch. So he says you are neither a man nor a woman. So your behavior is completely unmanly. So again he addresses him as Partha. So the way you address somebody itself conveys something. So when he says Partha, Partha is the son of Pritha, his mother. So here he refers to him as Kunti's son. So he is sort of saying you're mama's boy. So you're so this thing that you develop cold feet. You should have been just sitting with your mother instead of coming to the war. So he just wanted to needle him. So he says don't behave like in an unmanly manner, almost like a eunuch. Don't behave like that, and don't let this emotion take you over. So basically he is trying to work on the emotions of Arjuna, just challenging his ego. Basically he is challenging his ego, because Arjuna was expecting him to give him a very sympathetic advice, but here Krishna straight away started challenging him, which Arjuna did not expect. So he addresses him as Parantapa. So Parantapa is one who is very who has achieved many deeds, who has won wars, who has won over kingdoms. He has vanquished so many enemies. So Arjuna was considered to be a role model, and among both the sides, if you see, the Kauravas were scared of two people more than anybody else, Arjuna and Bhima. So if Arjuna decided to run away, definitely Yudhishthira also would have been forced to withdraw, because without Arjuna he had no chance to win the war. And if these two people withdraw, in spite of his all this thing, Bhima also would have had to, without choice, he would have had to join with them. So Arjuna was a key to the Pandava army, and Kauravas also were scared of Arjuna and Bhima. So if Arjuna had withdrawn, they would have got more strength, because they knew if Arjuna is not there, then definitely their chances are much higher. So here Krishna was just trying to tell Arjuna that his thinking was wrong. It is not, so the whole this thing was to challenge Arjuna's ego, so that he started realizing and his own problem, how to handle the thinking he wanted to change. So that was the idea of Krishna, to talk in this manner to Arjuna. So the next verse, verse number 4. Arjuna uvacha katham bhishmamaham sankhye dronam cha madhusudana isubhihi pratiyotsyami pujar havari sudana. So now Arjuna responds to whatever Krishna had said. So like I said, Arjuna didn't expect Krishna to talk in this way. So that's why again he addresses Krishna as Madhusudana, the vanquisher of the demon called Madhu. He was just trying to say, you killed all these asuras because you had no connection with them. But I am facing Bhishma and Drona, my most revered teacher and my grandfather. How can the people who are worthy of worship, they are worthy of worship. They are not meant to be fought with arrows. So that is what he is trying to convey. So he tells Krishna, you can speak from your side because you didn't have you didn't come across this kind of a problem what I am facing. So killing Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of worship, is impossible. I can't think of picking up my arms against these two stalwarts. So now Arjuna just wanted to justify his earlier stand. So he didn't expect Krishna to tell him that he was a coward, because he was not. But Krishna challenged him and called him a coward. He called him an unmanly person, which Arjuna did not expect. So he was trying to now justify that he is not a coward. He was just trying to say, no, your problem was easier compared to mine. It is not that I am running away because I am scared. I am not able to fight because I don't want to kill people whom I revere, whom I worship. I don't want to kill them. So Arjuna thought Krishna was just provoking him, calling him a coward, calling him an unmanly person. But Arjuna considered himself, or everybody considered him, as one of the most courageous, brave, very valorous warrior. So definitely nobody would have accused him of being a coward. So when Krishna said, don't behave like a coward, that probably pricked Arjuna more than anything else, because he didn't expect Krishna to call him a coward and a unmanly person. So this is now the situation where again Arjuna is going to respond. Further, what he says and what Krishna tells him, we will see in the next class.